The Forgotten Guardian. The Krillian war fleet emerged from hyperspace like predators stepping into shallow water. 16 vessels, each stretching over 2 kilometers in length, their hulls bristling with plasma cannons and quantum disruptors. Commander Zeth Karos stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion, watching the blue planet rotate peacefully on the main display. His silver eyes narrowed with satisfaction. "Initial scans complete, Commander," reported his tactical officer, a young Krillian named Vesa. "The planet shows primitive technology. Radio waves, chemical propulsion, nuclear fission. They barely reach their own moon. No orbital defenses detected. No energy shields. No plasma weapons." Zeth allowed himself a thin smile. 300 cycles he had served the Empire, conquering 47 worlds. This would be his easiest victory yet. The planet called Earth held 4 billion inhabitants, perfect for labor colonies. Its resources were abundant. Its people were divided, fighting among themselves even now according to their intercepted communications. "Prepare landing forces," Zeth commanded. "Standard occupation protocol. Target their population centers. Disable their military installations. I want this world claimed before the next cycle." The fleet moved into orbital formation, massive shadows falling across continents. On Earth, every telescope and satellite turned skyward. Emergency broadcasts flooded networks in dozens of languages. Governments scrambled. Military bases went to full alert. But everyone knew the truth. Humanity had no defense against this. At the United Nations headquarters in Geneva, Dr. James Rivera sat in the emergency assembly, his hands trembling as he watched the alien fleet through satellite feeds. He was a physicist, not a soldier. He studied theoretical energy systems, not war. Yet somehow he had been pulled into this room with generals and presidents, all of them wearing the same expression of helpless terror. "They're positioning for atmospheric entry," announced General Sarah Mackenzie, her voice tight. 18 dropships launching now. Target cities include New York, Beijing, Moscow, London, Tokyo. "We have to try something," insisted the French ambassador. "Launch everything we have. Nuclear weapons, conventional strikes, anything." "It would be like throwing stones at a mountain," Dr. Rivera heard himself saying. Everyone turned to look at him. He swallowed hard. "I've analyzed their hull composition from the scanner data. Our most powerful weapons would barely scratch their shields. We're dealing with technology centuries beyond ours." The room fell into crushing silence. On the screens, the drop ships descended like falling stars, burning through the atmosphere. Humanity watched its last moments of freedom slip away. Then something changed. Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, something older than human civilization stirred. Sensors that had remained dormant for millions of years suddenly flickered to life. Ancient processors, built by hands long turned to cosmic dust, began running calculations at speeds that would make Earth's supercomputers look like children's toys. A massive structure, buried under 6 miles of ocean floor and sediment, registered a threat. The ocean itself seemed to shudder. Seismographs around the Pacific Rim went haywire. Tsunamis that should have formed never materialized. Instead, the water simply parted, pulled aside by forces that ignored gravity and physics as humanity understood them. And something rose. On the Eternal Dominion, every alarm system screamed at once. Zeth Karos stumbled as his ship lurched violently to the side, its stabilizers straining against an invisible force. "Report," he shouted over the chaos. Massive energy surged from the planet's surface. Vesa shouted back, her voice cracking with fear Zeth had never heard from her before. "Commander, something just displaced 3 trillion tons of water. Energy readings are off every scale. It's bigger than our entire fleet combined." The main display switched to visual feed. Zeth felt his blood turn cold. Rising from the ocean was a ship that made his flagship look like a child's toy. It stretched over 50 kilometers from bow to stern, its hull a seamless expanse of metal that seemed to drink in light rather than reflect it. Structures that could have been weapons arrays or could have been entire cities covered its surface. Energy crackled along its length in patterns that hurt to look at directly. "Target lock," the weapons officer gasped. "Commander, it has target lock on every ship in our fleet simultaneously." Zeth had faced death before. He had stared down pirates and rebels and rival empires. But this was different. This was not a battle. This was an adult finding ants in its kitchen. "Evasive maneuvers," he ordered, proud that his voice stayed steady. "Full power to shields. Prepare to jump to hyperspace." "Hyperspace engines not responding," came the reply. "Something is inhibiting the quantum field." "Commander, we can't leave." The massive warship did not fire. It simply existed, hanging in the space between Earth and the Krillian fleet, and that was threat enough. Then, as if an afterthought, 18 beams of coherent light shot out from its surface. Each one touched a Krillian drop ship. The vessels simply stopped existing, converted to vapor and scattered atoms in milliseconds. Back in Geneva, the emergency assembly sat in stunned silence. The satellite feeds showed the impossible ship, showed the effortless destruction of alien invaders who moments ago seemed invincible. "What is that?" someone whispered. Dr. Rivera was already pulling up data on his tablet, his fingers flying across the screen. "The energy signatures," he breathed. "They're similar to anomalies we've detected but never understood. Gravitational irregularities in the Pacific. Magnetic field distortions. We thought they were natural phenomena, but they've been there forever. Since before the continents formed their current positions." "Are you saying that thing has been sitting under our ocean for millions of years?" General Mackenzie demanded. "I'm saying it's been waiting," Rivera replied, his eyes wide with wonder and terror. "Waiting for a threat we couldn't handle alone." On the Eternal Dominion, Zeth received an incoming transmission. Not through their communication systems, but directly into his neural implant. The experience was deeply unsettling. The voice that spoke was neither male nor female, neither young nor old. It simply was. "Krillian vessel. You have violated protected territory. Withdraw immediately or face complete destruction. This is your only warning." Zeth found his voice. "Who are you?" "The humans have no technology like this. The humans are under protection. Analysis indicates they are approaching technological threshold. They will not be interfered with. You have 30 seconds to begin withdrawal." "Protected by whom?" Zeth demanded, though he was already signaling his fleet to retreat. "What civilization builds a guardian this powerful and then abandons it?" The response came with a hint of what might have been amusement. "Not abandoned. Completed. The precursors seeded many worlds with potential. When a species reaches a certain point, when the first existential threat arrives, the guardian awakens. The humans have proven their resilience by surviving to this moment. Now they inherit what was left for them." "The humans don't even know this thing exists," Zeth protested. "They do now." The transmission ended. Zeth looked at his crew, saw his own shock reflected in their faces. Then he gave the order to withdraw. The Krillian fleet turned and fled, jumping to hyperspace the moment the mysterious interference lifted. The massive warship remained in orbit, silent and imposing. Inside the UN assembly, every phone and computer suddenly displayed the same message in every language simultaneously. "Greetings, humanity. I am Sentinel-7, guardian construct of the precursor civilization. For 200 million years, I have slept beneath your ocean, awaiting the day you would need protection you could not provide yourself. That day has arrived. You have been deemed worthy of inheritance. Prepare for orientation. Your education begins now." Dr. Rivera stared at his screen, then at the massive ship visible through the chamber windows, and realized that everything humanity thought it knew about its place in the universe had just been shattered and rebuilt in the space of minutes. The age of humanity's isolation had ended. The age of their inheritance had begun. Inheritance of giants. The first humans to board Sentinel-7 did so with trembling hands and racing hearts. Dr. James Rivera led the international team of scientists, engineers and military advisors through an airlock that had opened in the warship's lower hull. The structure had descended from orbit, positioning itself in stable hover above the Pacific Ocean, its massive shadow covering an area the size of a small country. "Life support confirmed," reported Captain Chen Wei, a Chinese astronaut who had volunteered for the mission. "Atmosphere is breathable. Temperature comfortable. Gravity feels normal, though we're standing inside a ship that shouldn't be able to generate artificial gravity with any technology we understand." Rivera stepped into the corridor beyond the airlock and felt his breath catch. The passage stretched ahead for what looked like miles, its walls made of a material that seemed to shift between metallic and crystalline depending on the angle of view. Soft light emanated from everywhere and nowhere. The scale was overwhelming. The corridor ceiling rose 50 meters above them, designed for beings much larger than humans. "Welcome aboard," the voice of Sentinel-7 echoed around them, coming from the walls themselves. "Please proceed to the orientation chamber. Your species has many questions. I will provide answers." General Sarah Mackenzie, who had insisted on joining the expedition despite protests, touched her sidearm unconsciously. "Why now?" she called out. "Why reveal yourself after millions of years?" "The precursors established specific parameters," Sentinel-7 replied as the team walked forward, their footsteps silent on the strange floor. A protected species must demonstrate 3 qualities before inheritance. First, survival through natural extinction events. Second, development of scientific reasoning in space travel. Third, the arrival of an external existential threat. Humanity achieved all 3 when the Krillian fleet entered your system. They entered a chamber so vast it could have held a dozen football stadiums. At its center floated a holographic display showing Earth, but not the Earth they knew. Continents were in different positions. Oceans covered different areas. "This is your planet 200 million years ago," Sentinel-7 explained. "When the precursors first seeded your world with the genetic potential that would eventually evolve into modern humans." Dr. Rivera stared at the display, his scientific mind reeling. "You're saying we were designed? Guided?" Sentinel-7 corrected. "The precursors did not create species from nothing. They identified worlds with existing life and introduced carefully selected genetic modifications. Small changes that would influence evolutionary paths. They did this on 73 worlds across this galaxy. Only 12 species survived to reach technological civilization. Of those 12, only 3 have survived their first contact with hostile galactic powers. You are the third." "What happened to the other 2? Asked Dr. Yuki Tanaka, a Japanese xenobiologist. "The first, the Venhir, used their inheritance to conquer neighboring systems. They were eventually destroyed by a coalition of species they had enslaved. The second, the Morith, rejected their inheritance entirely, choosing isolation. They still exist but have stagnated technologically. You have the opportunity to choose a different path." The holographic display changed, showing the precursors themselves. They were tall, elegant beings with 4 arms and crystalline growths along their spines. They looked both alien and somehow familiar, as if humanity carried some distant echo of their form. "Who were they?" Rivera asked quietly. "The eldest children of this galaxy," Sentinel-7 responded with something that almost sounded like reverence. "They arose 5 billion years ago when the galaxy was young. They mapped every star, explored every possibility of physics and reality, and they discovered something that terrified them." The hologram shifted again, showing swirling darkness punctuated by red stars. Beyond this galaxy they detected something vast and hungry. An intelligence so different from organic life that communication was impossible. It consumed entire galaxies, converting all matter and energy into more of itself. The precursors calculated it would reach this galaxy in approximately 8 billion years. The human team exchanged worried glances. General Mackenzie spoke up. "That's still billions of years away." "Yes," Sentinel-7 agreed. The precursors knew they would not survive to face this threat. Even their incredible technology had limits. So they created a different solution. They seeded worlds with potential, built guardian constructs like myself, and left behind their knowledge. They hoped that by the time the threat arrived, dozens of species across the galaxy would have inherited their technology, learned to cooperate, and developed solutions the precursors themselves could not imagine. "That's why you don't just do everything for us," Rivera realized. "You're not a gift. You're a responsibility." "Precisely. I can protect you from immediate threats. I can teach you what the precursors knew. But I cannot make decisions for your species. I cannot fight your battles indefinitely. You must grow. You must learn. You must become something greater than you currently are." Captain Chin approached the holographic display, reaching out tentatively. His hand passed through the image and suddenly information flooded his mind. He gasped, stumbling backward, and Rivera caught him. "Chin, are you all right?" "I saw it," Chin whispered, his eyes wide. "The knowledge is not just information. It's understanding. Physics, engineering, medicine, technologies we don't have words for. It's all there waiting. But it's too much. No one person could hold it all." "That is correct," Sentinel-7 confirmed. "The precursor's complete knowledge base would overwhelm any individual mind. Instead, I will begin a gradual integration process. Your scientists will learn advanced physics. Your engineers will understand new construction methods. Your doctors will discover treatments for diseases you currently consider incurable. Over generations, humanity will absorb what the precursors left behind." General Mackenzie stepped forward, her military training overcoming her awe. "What about defense? The Krillians retreated, but they'll be back. And if they're a known threat to you, there must be others." "You are correct. The Krillian Empire controls 347 star systems. They are not the largest threat in this region of space. I have already begun defensive preparations." The hologram changed, showing Sentinel-7 from the outside. As they watched, portions of the hull began to separate, revealing construction bays within. Small ships, each the size of Earth's largest aircraft carriers, began emerging like insects from a hive. "These are automated defense platforms," Sentinel-7 explained. "I am constructing 12,000 of them. They will establish a protective perimeter around your solar system. Any hostile force attempting to enter will be warned once, then destroyed. This will provide you with time to develop your own defensive capabilities." Dr. Tanaka raised her hand like a student in class, and Rivera almost smiled at the absurdity of the gesture given the situation. "How long will this integration process take? How long before we can truly use this technology ourselves?" "Conservative estimates suggest 20 Earth years before your species can independently operate basic precursor technology. 50 years before you can modify and improve upon it. 100 years before you are ready to venture beyond this solar system with confidence. However, humans have repeatedly exceeded predictions throughout your evolution. You may surprise me." The chamber suddenly shuddered, and alarm signals flashed in colors that somehow communicated urgency despite being unlike any warning system humans had designed. "Incoming vessels detected," Sentinel-7 announced, its tone unchanged but somehow conveying increased alertness. "Analysis indicates Krillian Empire scout ships. 17 vessels. They are maintaining position at the edge of your solar system, observing." General Mackenzie's hand went to her sidearm again. "They're planning something." "Yes. They are reporting your existence to their Imperial command. Within 10 Earth days a larger fleet will arrive. The Empire does not tolerate resistance. They will attempt to destroy me and claim Earth regardless of losses." "Can you stop them?" Rivera asked. "I can eliminate any fleet the Krillian Empire sends. However, this would result in the deaths of millions of Krillians and would mark humanity as a hostile power in galactic politics. The precursors learned that the path of endless warfare leads only to extinction. There is another option." "Which is?" Mackenzie demanded. "Diplomacy backed by strength. I will continue to protect your world. Meanwhile, you will learn to communicate with the Krillians and other galactic powers. You will demonstrate that humanity is not weak, but neither are you conquerors. You will forge alliances, establish trade, and build relationships that will serve you when I am no longer here." "When you're no longer here?" Rivera felt a chill. "How long will you remain operational?" "Guardian constructs are designed to last approximately 1,000 years after activation. After that, my systems will gradually fail. By then, humanity must be self-sufficient. You must be ready to stand without me." The weight of that statement settled over the human team like a physical burden. They had gone from being alone in the universe to being protected, and now they learned that protection was temporary. They were children being handed the keys to powers beyond imagination and told they had 1,000 years to grow up. Dr. Tanaka looked at the massive holographic display showing construction bays churning out defensive platforms, showing the vast knowledge waiting to be learned, showing the threat lurking in the space between galaxies. "This is not a gift," she said quietly. "This is a test. The precursors didn't just leave us their technology. They left us their burden." "Yes," Sentinel-7 confirmed. "And the question that will define your species is this. Will you rise to meet it, or will you fail as so many others have failed before you? The galaxy is watching humanity. What you do next will echo for millions of years." Rivera looked at his fellow humans, saw the fear and wonder mixed in their expressions, and felt something unexpected rising in his chest. Not panic but determination. Humanity had survived ice ages and plagues. They had split the atom and walked on their moon. They had been knocked down by nature and history countless times, and they had always stood back up. "Then we'd better get started," he said firmly. "Show us everything. We have work to do." The holographic display blazed brighter, and the real education of humanity began. Above them, in orbit, 12,000 defense platforms took their positions around Earth. And at the edge of the solar system, Krillian scouts watched and reported back to their empire. The age of humanity's isolation had ended. The age of galactic politics had begun. And somewhere in the cold dark between galaxies, an ancient hunger continued its slow, inevitable approach, unaware that a tiny blue world had just inherited the tools to one day stand against it. The future would be written in choices made now, in courage found in impossible circumstances, in the stubborn human refusal to surrender even when facing the infinite. And Sentinel-7, ancient guardian of an extinct civilization, allowed itself something approximating hope. Perhaps this time the inheritors would succeed.